Hey, there you go. Why don't you down that? Let's talk about what the hell happened today. Welcome to a somber edition of the Dolphins Dive Bar. I am your host, Tony Two Times, Chicky to some. So let's get into it. The Dolphins lose today up at the link, as they like to say, up in Philly, up in South Philly. Miami loses to the Kelly Green Eagles, the Green Machine, if you will, by a score of 17-31. Miami falls to 5-2 on the season, while Philly jumps up to 6-1. This one sucked. I mean, just like cutting through the fat. Like, I hate every loss. Every loss kills me. But this loss was especially egregious in the sense of, like, you had it. You had it in your hands. You got to put your arms around it, man. But a cynical fan was able to come out of me today is because, you start the game off and you do well on defense. I don't know if they kicked the field goal with that drive, that first drive, whatever. It might have. But you get the ball, and then your very first play on offense, you don't even get a playoff on offense. The very first time you take the field and go for an offensive snap, you're hit with a 5-yard penalty for delay of game. I mean, you have all that time, So that started it to where I'm like, oh man, this I don't know if these guys are going to have it together today, right? But it was all downhill from there. The defense today, man, I got to give it to the defense. They tried. They really tried. Their biggest flaw, their biggest mistakes was penalties on third down. Like, you can't give them free opportunities on third down. You almost get home multiple times. You get a hand on Hurts, but he's such a big guy. He's able to maneuver around the pocket, and he gives his receivers time to get open. And his receivers getting wide open. Like that tight end was, I mean, every time it seemed when he's like running a slant or a flat or something, he's wide open, he's getting the ball, and he's running down the field for yards. Those are the biggest mistakes, But when I say they tried, come on. What better positions can you give your team? You get Bradley Chubb, who's been improving, I think, every game now, starting to kind of live up to that contract that he was given, right? He comes in there, he hits Hurts, forces a fumble. Phillips is right there, too. Phillips almost got it, but Chubb caused it. And then Christian Wilkins picks it up. You give the offense the ball around like the 30, something like that, and you go down, you get a touchdown pass, call back for a penalty, and instead of getting 6 on the board, you get 3. You turn over 4 points right there. And your defense, they matched the offense in touchdowns today by getting a pick 6 when Kader Kohu slaps the ball out of the air, like really right into the belly of Jerome Baker, who runs it back to get the pick 6, and you tie it up like late in the third quarter, right? And the only other bad thing you do on defense is that you just can't stop that brotherly shove, whatever people want to call it. I mean, every time they wanted to do it, it was open. I mean, it got to the point in that fourth quarter there where they could have ran it every play, got 3 yards every play. So, like, every drive would have been 4th and 1, which they would have picked up. Because, I don't know, there's just something about the way they do it. It's not something about the way they do it. It's those trenches. They are so much bigger, faster, and stronger than the Dolphins. I mean, they're like, that team is a bully. And Miami doesn't do well against the bullies. I mean, we've seen it with the physical teams. You go against Buffalo, you go against the Eagles, and they sock you in the mouth. A couple other times, like one time they got blitzy. They sent the blitz and Philly had a screen called, and it was an easy touchdown for them. But other than that, and then at the end of the game when they were just completely gassed and they finally gave up the long ball to Brown, who was able to continue his streak and get another game of 120 plus receiving yards. But other than that, like, the defense wasn't my beef. Well, the penalties were my beef on the defense. Penalties just today were just ridiculous. I mean, should they have all been called? I mean, come on, Christian Wilkins, like, you lined up offside a couple of times. You can't gig him for that one. You can be skeptical about that roughing the passer. But when you step into it and you push a guy to the ground, even if it's like a split second after he releases the ball, I mean, the referees, they just want to call it. Because they want to protect the quarterbacks, and they especially want to protect the big-name quarterbacks, the guys that, selling the jerseys and were just in the Super Bowl. But today was just, man, the Finns just could not get right in the sense of the offense today. The offense was the worst offense I've seen all year. I mean, when they came up against a bully team, a strong team, they got mollywopped. I mean, you look in the trenches, Mostert had 9 carries, 45 yards, and he got all of those yards in the second half. Like, the Eagles kept Miami to negative yards in the first half running the football. So Tua's got to throw, 32 times he threw for? That offense, that vaunted Dolphins offense, I'll give them credit on that last drive of the first half, okay? When they were down 17-3, things were looking bleak. They probably got a penalty beforehand. And then it's like third and 13. Tua hits Jeff Wilson on the right side for 30 yards. So Wilson shined today. He had a few catches, couple of clutch catches. And then you hit Tyreek Hill. Even though there was safety help, he just split the defenders, and Stephen A. Smith would have you believe that he took a 2-yard throw to the house. But no, I mean, Tua aired it out 27 yards, whatever, in the end zone, touchdown. Miami goes in the half down 17-7, right? But that was it, okay? This offense, the greatest show on turf, the quickest path on natural grass. This team that was, 8-point-something yards per play and all these receiving yards and all this speed and all these points, and they were held to a goose egg in the second half on offense. The defense outscored them in the second half with the pick six, like we mentioned earlier. So the fact that this offense couldn't help their defense, who kept them in it basically all the way up until the end. Mike McDaniel gets outcoached, outclassed by Sirianni. And man, that guy, when he's doing the incomplete and that face, that mug, that puss that he has, I've never seen a more punchable guy. Like, I couldn't stand that guy, But you know what? To his credit, the guy's a winner. You know what I'm saying? He's winning football games. He coached in the Super Bowl. He's a pro NFL coach making millions of dollars. Like, who am I, right? Like, I'm some jerk off on YouTube with 3 views talking trash about him. So, I mean, let's have a little perspective. But I don't know. I couldn't stand him. If I was a Philly fan, if I lived in South Philly, where you still have an Italian enclave and that Philly attitude, that Northeast attitude, yeah, I would love the guy. I absolutely would love the guy. But since I don't live there and I'm not a Philly fan, I can't stand him. But he's a good coach. What are you gonna do? In the second half, the Dolphins were able to run the football some. That was good. They finally got their outside zones. I know the offensive line was, you're going to lose in the trenches against a bigger, stronger team, right? And it's especially hard to win in that area when you've got 3 backups playing on the O-line. Connor Williams was already out, and then you had to have 2 guys come in maybe due to injury. You got that hodgepodge of players who don't have the rapport, who don't have the reps, especially with each other. And then you're going against one of the best defensive lines in the league. And unfortunately, your receivers weren't helping that much today, even because Tua had time to throw. I don't know how many times he was sacked. He might have been sacked one or two times, maybe three. Um, but he had time to throw the football, and he had Tyreek Hill on a play that should have been a touchdown. But Tyreek was probably worried where that safety was coming from. Didn't want to get hit, but the ball just bounced off his knee. Or he was thinking about whatever celebration he's going to do in the end zone. The ball bounces off his knee, and it's an incomplete pass. And then on the very next play, the refs, they saw every Miami infraction. Every single one. But when Wilson gets his face mask gripped to the side on a fourth down play, they don't see that. Turnover on downs, right? But the football gods had him because the literal very next play is when Hurts threw that pick six. So the Dolphins, they have a lot of things they have to clean up. The penalties. Now they were actually closer to the bottom of the standings when it came to penalties this season. They had 35 penalties coming into the game, and the top team, which might be Indianapolis or whatever, had 48, right? After today's game. So the Dolphins committed 10 penalties today, excluding, which would have been their 11th, one that got, because Philly actually got called for something. It's funny, Philly got called for a penalty that it wasn't even a penalty, because they said that during that first Philly brotherly love shove thing that both guys were lined up in the neutral zone. You could clearly see Christian Wilkins was, right? Or somebody else's hand was up there too, and I guess they thought it was the Eagles player, and they threw a flag for that. And so they got offsetting penalties, which didn't count. So those were that was the only flag that Philly basically would have gotten called for. But Miami will also have to clean up the getting to the quarterback, but not getting the sack thing and letting them scramble, either run for a first down or throw for a first down when the receiver gets wide open, because Hurts can be a mobile guy when he needs to be. You got a game against Pat Mahomes coming up, who a certain percentage of his game is doing exactly that. It's going to drive you crazy when you see Kelsey running wide open down the field or right in the middle of the field when Mahomes scrambles. You got another game against Josh Allen and the Bills where he can do it. The guy Lamar from the Ravens, that's a part of his game as well. So these things, when you get to that quarterback, you've got to get home. You either got to get home, you got to have a spy, somebody that can get it done, because they just got gashed way too much with that today. The thing that can kill me the most about the game, other than the penalties, the ridiculous amount of penalties, deserved or not, and the no calls on Philly, was the fact that you had it with 4 minutes to go in the third. Okay, I'm sure the Eagles go down there, get a touchdown, but then you get it back and you're driving. And then always, once a game, Tua he always has that brain fart throw where it's oh, that could have been picked off, or it does get picked off. And once again, it's it's picked off. I don't know if it was in the red zone. Miami was 0 for 1 in the red zone today. But when you turn the ball over in the end zone, or with inside the 5, it's just it killed the rest of the momentum. That ball hung in the air for what seemed like forever. And I'm sorry, not Kohu. Whoever the receiver was on that pass might have gotten interfered with, because the defender kind of ran into him, didn't look back because he was going to come back for the ball, gets run into. And then Darius Slays just comes right up underneath it and picks it off. And what were these receivers doing? There was a couple of routes today where the receivers are within a couple of yards of each other. Within 5 yards of each other. And the ball is sailing in the area and you have all these extra defenders around. That's exactly what happened on that interception when Tua chucks it up. And then you got 2 receivers. You got Waddle running a corner, and you got the other receiver like basically running a go like right next to him. No space. And they've done that a few times this season. So McGenius, I mean, we gotta clean that one up. We gotta clean up these route concepts a little bit too, right? I don't really have game balls today. I mean, if I did, I would give it. Actually, no, I would give it to Bradley Chubb because he did have 2 sacks, and like 6 tackles or whatever. But he did have 2 sacks. He was an animal out there. He was a motor. The guys, when they did get to him, they got it good. I mean, I don't know if Christian got a sack. I don't think he got a sack, but he made some plays. Phillips got a sack, made some plays. Defense is getting there. Fangio got a lot of criticism for that defense, deservedly so, but they're getting there. And then once they have X-Man, who missed today's game with a groin injury, the last couple of years that groin has been, shot. He's doing too much extracurriculars, right? Trying to become Antonio Cromartie out here. But once he comes back, Jalen Ramsey gets a little time to get into game shape and comes back, and those guys can really start to meld together, then I think that defense is going to be all right. And that offense, I mean, they're not going to be held down every week. They're going to find a way to get it against the big teams. But, I mean, look, national media, they're doing themselves no favors, though, because national media is asking, are the Dolphins frauds? Because every team they beat has an abysmal record. I think like 8 wins combined for all the 5 teams that Miami beat, and the teams that they've lost to are the good teams with the good records. Well, Buffalo. I mean, they're actually a loss away from a 500 record, but I mean, where the hell's Claypool? I mean, Julio Jones got a catch today. He's been on the team for like 3 days. So where is he? What's he doing? Why can't he get packaged? Is the playbook too complicated to where he's just not picking it up yet? I mean, come on, but we could use that big body going up the seam for or up the side for a jump ball or a good possession receiver, especially when our speedsters are having trouble getting open. But anyway, like next week it's a home game. Got the Patriots. The Pats are 2-5, but the second win of that 2, the 2 in that 2, was a win against Buffalo today. Like in the dying embers, you got to see a Mike Gesicki. I mean, it's good to see it. I'm glad he's still doing it, and I'm glad they stuck it to Buffalo. But that's who the Dolphins have. I mean, they beat the team that smoked us. And we already beat them this year, sure, but it is a division game. These teams are just built to like compete with each other. They know everything about each other. It is Bill Belichick. I mean, the guy still has more Super Bowl wins than I don't know. I mean, I could have said it last year that he has more Super Bowl wins than our coach has wins, period. But I mean, the numbers are still pretty comparable. So to think just to have the hubris to think that Miami is getting a guaranteed win versus the Pats it's preposterous. You can't do that. So it's going to be a tough game against a tough defense that they're going to use the same playbook of physicality and taking away anything deep from our receivers and trying to keep everything underneath. And then, they don't have much of an offense, so they'll use that Philly method of just run the ball, short passes here and there, grind, take 5 to 7 minutes off of each drive, give the Dolphins limited opportunities, and just try to gut one out that way, right? So it's going to be a similar game plan for sure, I believe. So, and it's not guaranteed. And Dolphins are really, you're gonna have to play hard because you got this game, and then you got to fly to Germany, which is a crapshoot, to play the Chiefs, who have been scoring at will lately, it seems. So you don't want to let this thing snowball to where one win could potentially one loss could potentially turn into 3 in a row before you get to the bye week. So you got to take care of business next week against the Pats. So anyway, I'm done with this drink, so we're done with this video. It's not the end of the world. It sucks. It sucks to lose on prime time, to give the pundits, all that motivation to say how much we suck and that our, the crappy teams that we've played are a big reason why we have our record and all of our yards and all of our points and all that stuff. It sucks to give them that ammunition for another week. But, I mean, I hate that cliche. It is what it is, but it really is in this sense. You just gotta rebound and then come out next week and kick the Pats in the mouth. And until then, I'll be here. And I hope next week you come back and you hang out. Maybe have another one, and hopefully we're talking about a nice victory. So have a good night, and take care. Salud.